She was treated like a servant by her in-laws until she collided with a ruthless Korean mafia boss. The kimchi splattered across my face, burned like acid. "You useless girl." Mother Park's voice cut through the kitchen like a blade. 6 years in this family and you still can't prepare proper banchan? I stood there, kimchi juice dripping from my chin onto the silk hanbok she'd forced me to wear for tonight's family gathering. My hands shook as I gripped the edge of the counter, tasting blood from where I'd bitten my tongue to keep from responding. 6 years of this. 6 years since I'd married David Park and discovered that love meant nothing when you were a black daughter-in-law in a traditional Korean family that valued bloodlines over humanity. "Clean this mess and start over," she commanded, her diamond rings catching the light as she gestured dismissively. "The guests arrive in 1 hour. If you embarrass this family again." She didn't finish the threat. She never did. By now, I knew what happened when I embarrassed them. No dinner. Door locked from the outside. David's apologetic eyes that never quite translated into him actually defending me. I was 32 years old with a master's degree in international business, and I spent my days being treated like a servant who'd been gracious enough to be allowed to marry into their precious lineage. "Yes, Mother Park," I whispered, because that's what good Korean daughters-in-law did. They submitted. They served. They erased themselves until nothing remained but the shell performing the role. As I bent to clean the kimchi from the floor, my phone buzzed in my pocket. David's text. "Working late. Won't make dinner. Cover for me. Always working late. Always leaving me alone to face his family's contempt." I wanted to scream, to throw something, to walk out the door and never come back. Instead, I cleaned the floor and started the kimchi again, my tears mixing with the spices until I couldn't tell which burned more, my eyes or my shattered dignity. If you're already feeling this, drop a like and comment where you're watching from. This story is about to take a turn that will leave you breathless. The grocery bag split open in the parking garage, sending oranges bouncing across the concrete like bright drops of freedom trying to escape. "No, no, no," I muttered, chasing after them in the dim fluorescent lighting, my heels clicking frantically against the floor. I'd been sent to buy proper fruit, because apparently the perfectly good oranges I'd purchased that morning weren't fresh enough for Mother Park standards. It was 11 p.m., and I'd driven to 3 different H-Marts before finding ones that met her exacting specifications. I was bending down to grab the last orange when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of violence. A sharp crack of fist against bone. A body hitting concrete. Heavy breathing and low, dangerous voices speaking rapid Korean. My first instinct was to run. Pretend I hadn't heard anything. Get in my car and drive away like I'd spent the last 6 years doing. Making myself smaller, quieter, invisible. But one of the oranges had rolled toward the sound, and when I looked up, I saw them. 3 men in dark suits surrounding another man on the ground. The man standing closest to the victim held something that glinted in the fluorescent light. A knife. And on the ground, bleeding from his temple, was someone who looked barely 20. A kid, really, his eyes wide with terror as he tried to crawl backward. "Please," the kid gasped in English. "I don't have it. I need more time. Mr. Beck doesn't accept excuses," one of the suits said coldly. The knife descended. "Stop!" The word exploded from my mouth before my brain could catch up. All 4 men turned to stare at me. This black woman in a wrinkled hanbok, holding oranges like weapons, her natural hair escaping from the bun Mother Park insisted I wear. "This doesn't concern you," the man with the knife said, his English heavily accented. "Walk away." 6 years of swallowing words. 6 years of submission and silence and making myself invisible to survive. Something in me snapped. I said stop. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking but steady enough to hold it up. "I've already called 911. Police are on their way." I was lying. I hadn't called anyone. But the bluff worked. All 3 men straightened, exchanging glances. "You're making a mistake," the knife wielder said. But they were already backing away, melting into the shadows between cars. When they were gone, I rushed to the kid, dropping beside him. Blood matted his dark hair, and his breathing was labored. "Hey, stay with me," I said, checking his pulse with fingers that remembered first aid training from a lifetime ago. "What's your name?" "Jean," he gasped. "They'll come back. You need to go." I'm not leaving you. This time, I really did call 911. I stayed with Gene until the ambulance arrived, holding pressure on his head wound, talking to him about nothing and everything to keep him conscious. When the paramedics took over, one of them looked at me with concern. You're covered in blood. I looked down at my ruined hanbok, the expensive silk now stained dark red. Mother Park was going to kill me. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I laughed. A sharp, slightly hysterical sound that made the paramedic step back. For the first time in 6 years, I'd done something that mattered. I'd used my voice. I'd refused to be invisible. And somehow, getting this traditional hanbok ruined while saving a stranger's life felt like the most rebellious thing I'd ever done. The hospital was chaos. Bright lights and urgent voices and the sharp smell of antiseptic that reminded me of my father's final days. I sat in the waiting room, still wearing the blood-stained hanbok because I had nothing else to change into, when two men in expensive suits approached me. They moved like predators, silent, coordinated, dangerous. Mrs. Park? The taller one said, his English perfect and unaccented. We'd like to speak with you about tonight's incident. My stomach dropped. These weren't cops. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, gathering my things to leave. The second man, shorter, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, stepped into my path. The boy you saved, Gene. He works for our organization. I don't want any trouble. Neither do we. The tall one smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Our employer would like to thank you personally for your intervention. If you'll come with us, I'm not going anywhere with you. Mrs. Park. A new voice, deep and controlled, with an accent that wrapped around the English words like silk over steel. I apologize for my men's lack of courtesy. You're free to leave, of course, but I would appreciate 5 minutes of your time. I turned. He stood in the hospital corridor like he owned it, which, given the way staff suddenly found urgent business elsewhere, he probably did. Tall for a Korean man, maybe 6 feet, with sharp features that looked carved from stone and eyes so dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than David made in a month, and he radiated the kind of power that made my survival instincts scream at me to run. Stefan Beck. I knew the name. Everyone in the Korean community knew that name, even if they pretended not to. Real estate mogul, philanthropist, and, if the whispers were true, the man who controlled half the underground business in the city. I'm Uche Willow Park, I said, because lying seemed pointless. And I don't want any trouble with your organization. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Surprise, maybe, or interest. Uche Willow, he repeated, pronouncing my Nigerian name perfectly on the first try, while most people butchered it. The woman who bluffed 3 armed men into running. I didn't know they were armed. That makes it either very brave or very foolish. He studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Gene is stable. Thanks to your quick action. You saved his life. Anyone would have done the same. No, he said softly. They wouldn't have. Most people would have walked away. Pretended they saw nothing. Protected themselves. The way he said it made me think he was talking about more than just tonight. Is that what you would have done? I challenged, surprising myself. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I would have intervened, yes. But my methods would have been far less creative. Calling the police on my own men. Clever. I wasn't being clever. I was being desperate. Desperation can be a powerful motivator. He gestured toward the waiting room. Please, sit. I promise this won't take long. Against my better judgment, I sat. Stefan Beck settled across from me, his movements economical and controlled. Gene tells me you stayed with him, he said. Kept him talking. Possibly saved him from going into shock. I just did what needed to be done. Yes. Something in his voice made me look up. You did. Which is why I find myself in an unusual position. Owing a debt to someone I've never met. You don't owe me anything. In my world, debts must always be repaid. He reached into his jacket and I tensed, but he only pulled out a business card. Thick stock, embossed lettering. If you ever need anything at all, call this number. I took the card automatically. I won't. You will. His dark eyes held mine. Because tonight you stepped into my world, Uche Willow Park. And whether you realize it or not, you've been noticed. Subscribe now because what happens next will change everything. This is just the beginning. I made it home at 2 a.m., the bloodstained hanbok hidden in a garbage bag in my trunk. The Park family mansion was dark except for one light, David's home office. My husband sat at his desk, his face illuminated by his laptop screen. He looked up when I entered, and his eyes widened. Uche, where have you been? My mother has been calling. He registered my appearance. Why are you wearing that? Is that blood? I helped someone tonight, at the hospital. The hospital? His voice rose. You were supposed to be getting oranges. My mother has been waiting. Your mother? I interrupted, my voice dangerously quiet. Can wait. David stared at me like I'd grown a second head. In 6 years of marriage, I'd never interrupted him. Never raised my voice. Never challenged his family's demands. Are you feeling all right? He asked, concern mixing with condescension. Maybe you should lie down. I'll call mother and explain. No. The word hung in the air between us. Excuse me? No, David. I'm not lying down. I'm not calling your mother. I'm not apologizing for helping someone who needed help. I peeled off my cardigan, revealing the blood-stained hanbok underneath. Someone was hurt tonight. I stopped to help. That's what decent human beings do. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest for the first time in 6 years. The words poured out, unstoppable now. Do you know what your mother did tonight? She threw kimchi in my face. In my face. Like I was a servant. Like I was nothing. David's expression flickered. Guilt, discomfort, and then the familiar deflection. You know how traditional she is. It's just her way. Her way of treating me like I'm less than human. Her way of making me feel worthless every single day. My voice cracked. And you let her. Every time. That's not fair. I try to keep the peace. By sacrificing me. The words exploded out. By making me smaller and quieter and more invisible, so your family doesn't have to confront their own prejudice. Uche, you're exhausted. We'll talk about this in the morning when you're calm. I am calm. I laughed, the sound bitter. This is what calm looks like on a woman who's been drowning for 6 years. What you're seeing is me finally coming up for air. He stood, his hands raised in that placating gesture I'd grown to hate. I love you. You know I love you. But you married into a traditional Korean family. There are expectations. Expectations that I erase my culture, my identity, myself. I shook my head. I love you too, David. But I don't think love should hurt this much. I left him standing there and went to our bedroom, my bedroom really, since he spent most nights in his office. I stripped off the ruined hanbok and stood under the shower until the water ran cold, washing away blood and kimchi and 6 years of silent suffering. When I finally emerged, wrapped in my own robe instead of the silk monstrosity Mother Park had chosen, I found Stefan Beck's business card on my dresser where I'd left it. Bold lettering, a single phone number, and underneath, debts must always be repaid. I should throw it away. Instead, I tucked it into my wallet, just in case. Morning came too soon, announced by Mother Park's sharp voice echoing through the house. Uche, get down here immediately. I descended the stairs in jeans and a t-shirt. My clothes, not the traditional hanbok she expected, and found the entire Park family assembled in the dining room like a tribunal. Mother Park sat at the head of the table, flanked by David's father and his older sister, Michelle. David stood off to the side, his eyes not quite meeting mine. Sit, Mother Park commanded. I remained standing. I'd prefer not to. Her eyes narrowed. You will sit when I tell you to sit. No, Mother Park. I don't think I will. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. David. Mother Park's voice was ice. Control your wife. Uche, please, David said weakly. Just sit down and what? Apologize for saving someone's life last night. I turned to face them all. Because that's what this is about. Isn't it? Not that I missed your dinner party. That I dared to do something that mattered instead of playing servant to your guests. You embarrassed this family. Mother Park slammed her hand on the table. Running around the city at all hours. Getting involved in violence. Ruining expensive clothing. I saved someone's life. You made us lose face. I found my own. The words hung in the air. Mother Park's face went purple. You ungrateful girl. We took you into this family despite. She stopped herself, but I knew what she'd been about to say. Despite your being black. Despite your not being good enough. Despite what, Mother Park? I challenged. Please, finish that sentence. That's enough. Father Park spoke for the first time, his voice heavy with authority. Uche, you will apologize to your mother-in-law. You will cease this disrespectful behavior. And you will remember your place in this family. My place. I'd spent 6 years finding my place in this family. At the bottom, invisible, erased. No, I said quietly. I don't think I will. I turned to David. I'm going to stay with a friend for a few days. We need some space to think about whether this marriage can survive if your family continues to treat me like I'm less than human. Uche, don't. I held up my hand. Don't make promises you won't keep. Don't tell me it will get better. It won't. Not unless you actually stand up for me. For us. And we both know you won't do that. I walked out of that dining room with my head high, grabbed the overnight bag I'd already packed, and left the Park family mansion for what I suspected might be the last time. I drove aimlessly for an hour before pulling into a coffee shop parking lot and finally letting myself cry. My phone buzzed. Text from David. Please come home. We can work this out. Another from Mother Park. You will regret this disrespect. I deleted both messages and pulled out Stefan Beck's card. Debts must always be repaid. I stared at that number for a long time before finally typing a message. You said if I ever needed anything, I need a place to stay. Just for a few days. The response came within seconds. Address incoming. My driver will pick you up. Where are you? I sent him the coffee shop location and waited, my hands shaking around my cold coffee cup, wondering what I just set in motion. The car that picked me up wasn't what I expected. A sleek black Genesis? Yes, but driven by a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Mrs. Park? I'm Mrs. Cho. Mr. Beck sent me to collect you. Not a driver. A chaperone. A statement that this wasn't about anything inappropriate. The address took us to a high-rise in the city's most exclusive district. Mrs. Cho led me to a penthouse apartment that was all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering cityscape. Mr. Beck thought you might need some space, she explained, handing me a key. This apartment is empty. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. There's food in the kitchen, toiletries in the bathroom, and clothing in your size in the bedroom. I blinked. How did he? Mr. Beck is very thorough. Her smile was gentle. He also wanted me to assure you that there are no expectations attached to this assistance. You saved Jin's life. This is simply gratitude. I don't understand. This is too much for. Mr. Beck doesn't do anything halfway. She patted my arm. Rest. Take the time you need. If you require anything, my number is programmed into the phone on the counter. After she left, I wandered through the apartment in a daze. Everything was perfect, from the art on the walls to the Korean and West African fusion decorations that somehow honored both parts of my heritage. The closet held clothing in my exact size. Comfortable pieces, nothing overly expensive but quality. The bathroom had products for natural hair. The kitchen was stocked with both Korean and Nigerian ingredients. He'd thought of everything. And somehow that made me cry harder than I had in the coffee shop parking lot. I was curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of cedar, when the doorbell rang. Stefan Beck stood in the hallway, still in a suit despite the late hour, carrying 2 bags that smelled like heaven. I brought dinner, he said. May I come in? I should say no. Should maintain boundaries. Should remember that this man was dangerous, powerful, involved in things I didn't want to know about. Instead, I stepped back and let him in. He moved to the kitchen with practiced ease, unpacking containers of steaming food. I wasn't sure what you'd prefer, so I brought options. Jollof rice, moi moi, suya from the best Nigerian restaurant in the city, and some Korean dishes as well. Comfort food. You didn't have to. I wanted to. He gestured to the dining table. Please, eat. You look like you haven't had a proper meal in days. He was right. I'd been living on whatever Mother Park's leftovers I could sneak. Too exhausted most nights to cook for myself. We sat across from each other, and I found myself eating with an appetite I'd forgotten I had. The jollof rice tasted like home, like my mother's kitchen, like Sunday dinners with extended family, like a part of myself I'd locked away to fit into David's world. How did you know? I asked, gesturing to the Nigerian dishes. Your name, Uche Willow. Nigerian given name. He took a delicate bite of kimchi. I made some calls. Found out you were Igbo, second-generation American. Your mother immigrated in the 80s. That's thorough. I'm a thorough man. His dark eyes met mine. I also found out about your marriage to David Park. Your educational background. Your complete erasure of professional identity after marriage. Heat rose to my cheeks. So you know everything about my spectacular failure as a daughter-in-law. I know everything about a woman who sacrificed herself trying to bridge two worlds that refused to meet in the middle. His voice was gentle. That's not failure, Uche. That's courage. Courage would have been leaving years ago. Courage is leaving now. He set down his chopsticks. I brought you here because you needed space. But I'm also here because I want to offer you something else. My stomach tightened. I'm not interested in being anyone's mistress. A job. He cut off my assumption smoothly. I'm expanding into West African markets. I need someone who understands both Korean and Nigerian business culture. Someone with your educational background and cultural fluency. I stared at him. You're offering me a job? A partnership, actually. I provide the capital and Korean connections. You provide the West African expertise and business development. He slid a folder across the table. Look it over. There's no pressure. But I think we could build something remarkable together. I opened the folder with shaking hands. The salary listed made my eyes water. The position description matched my graduate degree perfectly. The degree I'd abandoned when Mother Park declared that working wives brought shame to the family. Why? I whispered. Why would you do this for a stranger? Stefan was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight I hadn't heard before. My mother was Korean. My father was half Chinese, half black. A one-night stand my mother never spoke about. He met my eyes. I grew up being told I was Suki, a mongrel. Not Korean enough. Not pure enough. Never enough. My breath caught. I built my empire to prove them wrong, he continued. To show that mixed blood didn't mean weakness. That being different could be strength. He gestured to the folder. You understand what it means to be caught between worlds, Uche. To be judged for existing exactly as you are. That understanding is valuable. And that's the only reason? I challenged. Because we both know what it's like to be outsiders? His smile was dangerous. Would you believe me if I said yes? No. Good. He stood, his movements fluid. You're perceptive. That will serve you well in business. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I also helped you because when you saw violence, you didn't walk away. You didn't make yourself small or invisible. You stood up. I was terrified. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. His dark eyes held mine. Think about the offer. Take all the time you need. This apartment is yours regardless of your decision. After he left, I sat alone with the business proposal and the remnants of comfort food from both sides of my heritage. For 6 years, I'd made myself smaller to fit into someone else's world. Maybe it was time to build one of my own. I woke the next morning to 17 missed calls from David and a voicemail from Mother Park that I deleted without listening to. Instead, I called the number on Stefan's card. Uche. He answered on the first ring, and I wondered if he'd been waiting. Have you made a decision? I want to see your operation first, I said. Before I commit to anything, I need to understand exactly what I'd be involving myself in. Smart. There was approval in his voice. I'll send Mrs. Cho to pick you up at noon. The headquarters of Beck Enterprises occupied 3 floors of the most prestigious building downtown. Legitimate businesses, real estate development, import-export, technology investments, all legal, all profitable, all serving as the public face of Stefan's empire. But I wasn't stupid. I knew there had to be more. Stefan led me through gleaming offices where employees bowed respectfully as he passed. He showed me conference rooms and development plans, explaining his expansion strategy with the precision of someone who'd built everything from the ground up. Impressive, I admitted as we stood in his private office overlooking the city. But this isn't everything, is it? He turned from the window, his expression unreadable. No, it's not. Show me the rest. Are you sure you want to see? I want the truth. All of it. Stefan studied me for a long moment, then nodded. He made a call in rapid Korean, and minutes later Miho, the scarred man from the hospital, appeared. Mrs. Park wants the full tour, Stefan said. Miho's eyebrows rose, but he bowed slightly. As you wish, Mr. Beck. We descended to the parking garage where several black SUVs waited. The drive took us to a warehouse district I recognized from news reports about gang activity. Inside, the warehouse had been converted into something between a community center and a fortress. Young Korean men trained in a boxing ring. Others worked at computers. In a corner, an older woman taught what looked like a Korean class to a group of teenagers. This is where I started, Stefan explained. These boys, most of them are like I was, mixed heritage. Korean enough to be rejected by Korean society, but not white enough to be accepted by American society. They fall through the cracks. So you catch them. I give them purpose, structure, a family that doesn't judge them for their blood. His jaw tightened. Yes, some of what we do operates in gray areas. Protection services for businesses the police won't protect. Dispute resolution when the courts have failed. But we don't traffic drugs. We don't exploit women. We don't prey on the weak. You have a code. I have lines I won't cross. He turned to face me fully. I'm not a good man, Uche. I've hurt people, made choices that haunt me, but I'm trying to build something better for the next generation. I watched the teenagers in the classroom, their faces intent as they practiced Korean calligraphy. Saw the boys in the boxing ring learning discipline alongside fighting. Recognized the structure of a community built by someone who understood what it meant to be rejected by society. The West African expansion, I said slowly. This is about building the same thing there, creating pathways for people who don't fit traditional molds. Partially, he gestured to a side office, and we entered a space dominated by maps and business plans. It's also about legitimate business opportunities. West African markets are growing exponentially. Someone with cultural knowledge and business acumen could build substantial wealth connecting Korean and Nigerian enterprises. And you want me to be that someone? I want us to build it together. He leaned against the desk. I provide the capital and Korean connections. You provide the West African expertise. We split profits 60-40 in your favor for the first 5 years. That's extremely generous. I can afford to be generous. And I have a feeling you'll earn every percentage. His dark eyes met mine. What I can't afford is someone who doesn't understand both sides of the equation. You do. I thought about 6 years of erasing myself. 6 years of being told I was too black, too American, too different to truly belong. Here was a man offering me space to be exactly who I was, Nigerian and American, educated and experienced, someone who'd survived being caught between worlds and emerged with the ability to bridge them. I have conditions, I said. Name them. First, complete transparency. If you're involved in something illegal, I need to know. I won't be blindsided. He nodded. Agreed. Second, I maintain final say over any West African business decisions. I won't be a figurehead. I wouldn't want you to be. Third, I took a breath. I need time to finalize my divorce before this partnership becomes public. I won't give the Parks ammunition to use against me. Something shifted in his expression. You're leaving him. I already left. I'm just making it official. Does he know? Not yet. I pulled out my phone. But he's about to. I called David's number. He answered on the first ring. Uche, thank God. Where are you? Mother is beside herself. I want a divorce, David. Silence. What? A divorce. I'm filing papers this week. My voice was steady despite my racing heart. I'll send you my lawyer's information. I'm not asking for much, just what's legally mine. Uche, you can't be serious. Over one argument. Mother was just upset. It wasn't one argument. It's been 6 years of systematic degradation. 6 years of you choosing your family's comfort over my humanity. I glanced at Stefan. who'd turned to give me privacy but remained close enough to offer silent support. I'm done making myself smaller to fit into a family that will never accept me. I deserve better. Is this about another man? David's voice turned sharp. Because if you think this is about me finally choosing myself. I ended the call before he could continue. My hands were shaking. Stefan wordlessly handed me a glass of water. That was brave, he said quietly. That was terrifying. Often the same thing. He waited while I drank, then asked, "Your answer about the partnership?" I thought about the teenagers in the classroom, the boys in the boxing ring, the community Stefan had built for people who didn't fit anywhere else. I thought about 6 years of being told I was too much and not enough simultaneously. And I thought about the woman I'd been before David Park. Confident, ambitious, unafraid to take up space in the world. Yes, I said. Let's build something remarkable. Stefan's smile was slow and genuine. Welcome to the family, Uche Willow. Not Uche Park. Not Mrs. David Park. Just Uche Willow, the woman I'd been before I lost myself, and the woman I was finally becoming again. The divorce papers were served 2 days later. David showed up at the penthouse apartment that evening, somehow having tracked me down despite my precautions. I opened the door to find him standing there, looking haggard and desperate in a way I'd never seen before. Uche, please, can we talk? I should have said no, should have maintained boundaries. But 6 years of marriage deserved at least one final conversation. I let him in, but I didn't offer him a seat. How did you find me? I asked. I hired a private investigator. He ran his hands through his hair. Uche, what are you doing? This apartment, the divorce papers. Rumors about you working for Stefan Beck. Rumors travel fast. Stefan Beck is dangerous. He's given me more respect in 3 days than your family gave me in 6 years. I crossed my arms. What do you want, David? I want my wife back. I want us to work through this. There is no working through this. Your mother threw kimchi in my face. Your family treats me like a servant. And you've never once defended me. I've tried to keep the peace. By sacrificing me every single time. My voice rose. Do you know what it's like to erase yourself day after day? To make yourself smaller and quieter and less until there's nothing left. My family is traditional. They need time to adjust. It's been 6 years, David. How much more time do they need? I shook my head. How much more of myself am I supposed to give up? He reached for my hands, and I let him take them, let him hold them the way he used to when we first met and the world seemed full of possibility. I love you, he said desperately. I know I haven't shown it well. I know I've let you down. But I do love you, Uche. Doesn't that count for something? It did. That was the terrible truth. Despite everything, some part of me still loved David Park. The man he'd been before family pressure turned him into someone I barely recognized. Love isn't enough, I said gently. Not when it means destroying myself to preserve your peace. What if things changed? What if I stood up to my family? You won't. I pulled my hands away. You've had 6 years to do it, and you never have. Not once. And I'm tired of waiting for you to choose me. So you're choosing Stefan Beck instead? The jealousy in his voice was almost funny. I'm choosing myself. Stefan is offering me a business partnership, nothing more. You're living in his apartment. I'm living in corporate housing while I finalize our divorce and find my own place. I met his eyes. There's nothing inappropriate happening, David. But even if there were, it wouldn't be your business anymore. He flinched. Is that really what you want? To throw away 6 years of marriage? You threw it away every time you let your mother demean me. Every time you chose keeping the peace over defending your wife. Every time you made me feel like loving you meant hating myself. I walked to the door and opened it. Sign the divorce papers, David. Let's at least end this with some dignity. He stood there for a long moment, and I saw the moment he finally accepted it was really over. His shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him. I'm sorry, he whispered, for all of it. I'm so sorry, Uche. I know. And I did. David wasn't a monster. He was just a weak man who'd chosen the easy path of his family's approval over the hard path of standing up for the woman he loved. Goodbye, David. After he left, I sat on the couch and let myself cry one last time for the marriage that might have been if we'd both been braver. Then I dried my tears, pulled out the business proposal Stefan had given me, and started planning for the future. Over the next 3 weeks, I threw myself into work with an intensity that surprised even Stefan. I spent my days researching West African markets, building connections with Nigerian business leaders, developing proposals that merged Korean manufacturing efficiency with West African distribution networks. The work was challenging, intellectually stimulating, and deeply fulfilling in ways I'd forgotten work could be. Stefan proved to be an exacting but fair partner. He pushed me, challenged my assumptions, made me defend every proposal with data and analysis. But he also listened when I explained cultural nuances he'd missed, adjusted strategies based on my insights, and treated my expertise with genuine respect. We developed a rhythm, meeting every morning over Korean coffee and Nigerian chin-chin cookies. Stefan had them specially ordered after I mentioned missing them, spending hours debating strategy, ending most evenings with working dinners where business gradually gave way to more personal conversations. I learned about his childhood, the Korean mother who'd raised him alone after his father disappeared, the grandmother who'd been both fierce protector and harsh critic, the slow building of his empire from nothing. He learned about mine, growing up in Detroit with Nigerian parents who'd sacrificed everything to give me opportunities, my father's death during my college years, meeting David during my MBA program and believing love could bridge any cultural divide. You were naive, Stefan observed one evening as we sat in his office reviewing contracts. I was hopeful, I corrected. There's a difference. Is there? His dark eyes studied me. Hope without realistic assessment is just another form of delusion. And cynicism without allowing for possibility is just cowardice. He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. You don't pull punches, do you? Would you respect me if I did? No. He set down his pen. I respect very few people, Uche. You're rapidly becoming one of them. The compliment shouldn't have warmed me as much as it did. This was a business partnership, nothing more. The fact that I found myself looking forward to our meetings, that my heart raced when his hand accidentally brushed mine reaching for the same document, that I'd started choosing my clothes more carefully on days we met. All of that was just adjustment. Attraction born from finally being treated with respect after years of degradation. Nothing to act on. Nothing to acknowledge. The Lagos deal is ready for your signature, I said, redirecting to safer ground. I've verified all the local partners. We can move forward whenever you're ready. Not we. You. He slid the contract across the desk. This is your deal, Uche. You developed it, negotiated it, structured it. You signed first as primary partner. I stared at the signature line. Stefan, this is a $10 million deal, and you've earned the authority to execute it. His voice was firm. I meant what I said about partnership. I'm not interested in you being my employee or my figurehead. You're my equal in this, Uche. Start acting like it. My hand trembled slightly as I signed my name. Uche Willow, not Park, on the contract that represented more money than I'd ever imagined controlling. Now comes the hard part, Stefan said, watching me with those intense dark eyes. Harder than negotiating with Nigerian business moguls? Much harder. He stood, moving around the desk to stand beside me. You have to go to Lagos in person to finalize everything. Meet with partners face to face. Represent our venture. I can do that. I know you can. The question is whether you'll do it alone, or whether you'll allow me to accompany you. My breath caught. You want to go to Lagos? I want to support my partner during a crucial business trip. His voice was carefully neutral. I also want to learn more about West African business culture firsthand. But if you prefer to handle this yourself, come with me, I said before I could overthink it. I'd like you there. Something shifted in his expression. Satisfaction, perhaps, or something deeper I wasn't ready to name. Then I'll make the arrangements. He returned to his desk, already pulling out his phone. We leave in 3 days. That gives you time to prepare and finalize your divorce. The divorce. I'd almost forgotten about it in the whirlwind of work. The papers had been filed, the waiting period almost over. Soon I'd be legally free from the Park family. The thought should have brought relief. Instead, it brought a strange sort of emptiness. Not regret, exactly, but the melancholy of closing a chapter of my life, even a painful one. As if sensing my mood, Stefan looked up from his phone. Second thoughts. No, just processing. Ending a marriage is never easy, even when it's necessary. He hesitated, then added, My mother never married my father. He was a sailor who passed through Seoul and never looked back. She spent her life alone, raising a mixed-race son in a society that judged her harshly for it. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made her strong. Made me strong. His eyes met mine. Sometimes the ending of one thing is the beginning of something better. Is that what this is? I asked quietly. Something better? That depends. He stood, moving close enough that I could smell his cologne. Sandalwood and something uniquely him. What do you want it to be, Uche? The question hung between us, loaded with possibility and danger in equal measure. I should step back, maintain professional boundaries. Remember that mixing business and personal feelings was a recipe for disaster. Instead, I found myself moving closer, drawn by a pull I'd been denying for weeks. I don't know, I admitted, but I think I want to find out. Stefan's hand came up slowly, giving me time to retreat. When I didn't, he cupped my face with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with his dangerous reputation. Tell me if this crosses a line, he said, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. It does, I whispered. We shouldn't, he agreed, but neither of us pulled away. His lips met mine softly, questioningly, giving me every opportunity to stop this. But I didn't want to stop. After 6 years of feeling unwanted and undesired, Stefan's kiss felt like coming home to myself. I kissed him back, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence as his arms wrapped around me, pulling me close against his solid warmth. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. This complicates things, he said. Everything about us is complicated. True, his laugh was rough. But I find myself not caring very much about complications right now. Stefan, I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I just ended a marriage. I'm not ready for. I know. He released me immediately, though his eyes remained dark with want. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give, Uche, but I won't pretend I don't want you. I won't pretend this is purely business when it stopped being purely business the moment I saw you standing in that hospital waiting room, covered in blood, with fire in your eyes. When did it stop being business for me? I wondered aloud. You tell me. I thought about it honestly. When you brought me jollof rice and called it comfort food. When you offered me partnership instead of charity. When you looked at me like I was powerful instead of broken. You are powerful. His voice was intense. You've always been powerful, Uche. You just needed space to remember it. The moment stretched between us, electric and dangerous and full of promise. My phone shattered it, buzzing with an incoming call. Mother Park's name flashed on the screen. I silenced it without answering. Persistent, Stefan observed. She's been calling every day since I filed for divorce. Apparently, I'm bringing shame to the family. I tucked the phone away. I've stopped listening to the voicemails. Do you want me to make her stop? The offer was casual, but I knew what it meant. Stefan had the power and connections to make anyone disappear from my life, legally or otherwise. No, I said firmly. I need to handle my own battles. Even when you don't have to? Especially then. I met his eyes. I spent 6 years having battles fought for me or around me but never by me. I need to prove to myself that I can stand up for myself. Understanding flickered across his face. Then I'll step back. But know that I'm here if you need backup. I know. And I did. Having Stefan Beck as backup felt like having a nuclear arsenal in reserve, comforting even when you hoped never to use it. Lagos hit me like a wall of heat, sound, and color. The moment we stepped off the plane, humidity wrapped around us like a wet blanket. The airport buzzed with energy, shouted Yoruba and Igbo mixing with English, bright prints on every surface. The organized chaos of a city that ran on its own unique rhythm. Stefan stayed close as we navigated customs, his hand a steady presence at the small of my back. You're smiling, he observed as we climbed into the waiting car. I didn't realize how much I missed this, I admitted, watching Lagos stream past the window. The chaos, the life, the feeling of being in a place where my skin color doesn't make me an outsider. You were an outsider in your own marriage. Yes, I turned to face him. But here, I'm just Nigerian, one of millions. It's freeing. Our driver, a jovial man named Chitty, regaled us with stories about Lagos traffic and politics as we crawled through legendary gridlock toward our hotel. Stefan listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he'd done his homework about Nigerian culture. The meetings over the next 3 days were intense. We sat across from powerful Nigerian businessmen and women who assessed us with shrewd eyes, looking for any weakness to exploit. At first, they were skeptical, particularly about Stefan's involvement. Why should we trust a Korean businessman in Nigerian markets? One of the ministers asked bluntly during our 3rd day of negotiations. I prepared for this. Because he's not trying to extract from Nigeria, he's trying to build with Nigeria. We're proposing genuine partnership, not colonial exploitation dressed up in business language. Pretty words, another minister said. But words are easy. Then judge us by actions. I pulled out the revised proposal we'd worked on until 2 a.m. the previous night. We're proposing 60% Nigerian ownership of all ventures, with profit sharing that heavily favors local communities. Training programs that transfer knowledge, not just extract labor. Investment in infrastructure that will outlast any single business deal. One of the women, Minister Okonkwo, a formidable presence in traditional rapper and geli, leaned forward. Why? What's in it for you? I glanced at Stefan, who nodded permission for me to speak for us both. Sustainable long-term partnerships that benefit everyone, I said. We're not interested in getting rich quick and leaving. We're interested in building something that lasts. Something that creates opportunities for people who've been told they don't matter, which is something both Mr. Beck and I understand personally. Minister Okonkwo's eyes sharpened. Explain. So I did. I told them about being caught between Nigerian and American identities. About marrying into a Korean family that tried to erase everything I was. About Stefan's own experience as a mixed-race man in a society that valued purity. We're not heroes, I said. We're just two people who know what it's like to be told you're not enough. And we want to build something that proves them wrong. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Minister Okonkwo laughed. A big, genuine sound that transformed her severe face. Ah, this one has fire. I like fire. She turned to Stefan. And you, Mr. Beck? You agree with everything she's saying. I agree with everything she's saying, Stefan confirmed. But more importantly, she has final authority over all West African operations. If Uche says no to any aspect of any deal, it's no. That's non-negotiable. The ministers exchanged glances. This was clearly not what they'd expected. We'll need to verify these claims, one of them said. Review the contracts with our legal teams. Of course, I said. Take all the time you need. We're not going anywhere. That evening, as Stefan and I sat on the hotel terrace overlooking Lagos's glittering skyline, I finally let myself believe this might actually work. You were brilliant today, Stefan said, handing me a glass of palm wine he'd somehow procured. The way you read the room, adjusted your approach. I had a good teacher, I interrupted. You set the foundation. I just built on it. No, his voice was firm. This is all you, Uche. Your vision, your connections, your cultural understanding. I'm just the money behind it. You're more than that. Am I? He moved closer, the warm Lagos night wrapping around us. What am I to you, Uche? The question I'd been avoiding for weeks. I don't know, I admitted. Partner, definitely. Friend, I think. And maybe, I turned to face him fully. Maybe something I'm not ready to define yet. Something that terrifies and excites me in equal measure. I can work with maybe. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. I'm a patient man, Uche Willow. We sat like that as Lagos hummed below us. Two people from impossible backgrounds, building something impossible together. My phone buzzed. A text from Minister Okonkwo. Your contracts check out. Let's make this work. Welcome to Lagos, my sister. I showed Stefan the message, and his smile was genuine and warm. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass. To new beginnings. I echoed. And as our glasses clinked in the warm Lagos night, I realized I was finally truly free. Free from the parks. Free from the woman I'd been forced to become. Free to build a future entirely of my own making. With a dangerous Korean man at my side who treated me like an equal. It wasn't the story I'd imagined for myself. It was better. If the story moved you, drop a like and comment where you're watching from. Subscribe for more stories about women who refuse to be broken and the unexpected allies who help them rise. Because sometimes the wrong number leads you exactly where you need to be.